Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast with Angela Dunn-Cartledge. Hey there, it's Angela from Been There, Done That. If you're navigating the wild, unpredictable world of grief, I want to invite you to something special. It's called Messy Mornings, and it's our free weekly newsletter filled with real talk, gentle reminders, and support that actually meets you where you are. Each week, I'll send you stories, reflections, healing prompts straight to your inbox. No fluff, no pressure, just the space to release, feel, and heal. You don't have to do this alone. Head over to donethatpodcast.com and sign up for Messy Mornings. It's totally free and it's made with you in mind. I've been there, and let's walk through this together. Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Been There, Done That podcast, and I'm your host, Angela Dunn-Cartledge. I am here with Adaku Mbagwu. We are going to talk about resilience in business. We're going to talk about all the things that that she can offer to this world, and I can't wait. Thank you so much for being here, Adaku.
Thank you for having me.
I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what brought you to the show.
Sure. So in terms of me, my background, I'm born in Nigeria, grew up in the UK, moved there since I was 6 years old. I am the second eldest of 7 children, but the firstborn daughter, which kind of plays into the work that I do now. And through my journey, I've kind of gone it from working in recruitment to having my own recruitment business. Being a coach to firstborn daughters. So now I help firstborn daughters specifically who are entrepreneurs and executives heal some of the limitations that come from being a firstborn daughter so that they can see a lot more success while also putting the stress to the side and bringing in more peace and flow into their lives.
I love that. Being a firstborn daughter myself, I feel like there is a lot of pressure on that role that we may pull in and do that to ourselves, but I think there's a lot of pressure just in general on that role. So let's start there and sort of dig in from that perspective. I have already said I am a firstborn daughter, as are you, and I would love to know your perspective on what that means in terms of society's idea of us and then also family idea of us. And I understand that your culture is different than mine, but I'm so fascinated to know how does that work in your Nigerian family versus mine as a Western, United States family.
Okay, so it's interesting because I'll give you the cultural Nigerian part, and then I'll give you what I'm finding from working with firstborn daughters in terms of like the psychological relationship between the mother and the firstborn daughter, which I'm finding fascinating. So culturally, actually, my name, I'm part of the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, and every firstborn daughter gets given a name, Ada. ADA, and they add whatever they want to the end. And so it's interesting that we kind of get stamped that we are the Ada. So if I introduce myself to someone in Nigeria and I say I'm Adaku and they're Igbo, they'll say, "Oh, you're the firstborn." So it's already it's a thing. It's a significant role in the family. They call the Ada the second mum, which is not surprising. So they have that expectation from the moment you're born that as the firstborn daughter, you are the second matriarch of the household. That's a lot of pressure before you even come into the world. As soon as they know it's a girl, they're like, it's the Ada, and they give you that name. So culturally there's this kind of expectation that you kind of lead the way for your siblings, you help raise your siblings. So even though you're a child, you're like trying to figure it out yourself and helping your mom raise your siblings. So that is ingrained culturally. But then outside of that, I think there are studies starting to come out and they're calling it eldest daughter syndrome, but I don't think it's just for women that have um, siblings. It's if you're the only child of a family and you're the firstborn girl, or you're the youngest girl of boys, I'm finding that we have the same trait. So I started wondering why. And a lot of the clients I work with, they're having challenges with their firstborn daughter. And I'm like, why is this generational thing happening? And because my clients are already working on themselves, I'm using it as a kind of experiment to figure out what is it about the relationship between the mother and the firstborn. And what's starting to come to the surface, which I'm still inquiring about, it's almost like that firstborn child is going to be the answer to all of the issues that they had in terms of, so if the mom didn't receive love in a certain way, she gives birth to that daughter expecting that daughter to love her in the way that she wasn't loved. So then that kind of puts that daughter in a parentified role, because then they are putting the emotional responsibility onto that child to make them feel better in some way. So then that's where the expectations come in. And then as a firstborn daughter, you kind of feel like you have to be the good child, the perfectionist, and there's something indirect, whether it's overtly expressed or inadvertently like it's implied, there is some dynamic there that puts this pressure on this firstborn girl. Because I'm not sure, I haven't done too much research on men, but I think that there's a specific pressure on the girl to kind of show up in a certain way, especially with their mother.
And potential siblings, right? I mean, I loved how you gave us the comparison between an only daughter versus a firstborn daughter, and I literally was sitting here thinking that I come from, and my daughter is now part of a long line of firstborn daughters, but that my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was the baby of the family, but was the first girl, the
Mm-hmm.
only girl. And that there are so many similarities between she, my mom, me, and now my daughter, that it is fascinating to watch. In addition to that, my new best friend, my daughter is adopted as an embryo.
Mm-hmm.
So genetically, she isn't our line, but biologically, she's our line. And everybody everybody has said, "She's your mini me. She's just like you." And I think that is the worst compliment you could possibly, because I was parentified.
Yeah.
In your example, I was parentified. I had a single mom, so I was parentified. She was also parentified as the oldest because she had to be to help. She had 3 younger siblings. I only had 2 that I lived with, but I have a half sibling as well. Then I birthed this daughter that now is, telling everybody what to do, and she rules the roost and everything. And it is incredibly fascinating to me, this idea that we we may not have Ada as our name, but we feel it. We
Mm-hmm.
still have it as part of our biology. So there's an adjustment that has to happen during this process, right? That we grow into that role, or we push against it. And that probably goes in waves, right? In phases of our lives, seasons of our lives. How do we find our way, find our place in this dynamic of being the firstborn daughter, and then, even in my daughter's case, being the firstborn daughter without even meaning to be?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's I don't. How do I answer that question succinctly?
I know it's such a huge question. I'm sorry that I gave you a big one.
No, it's fine. I like a challenge. So the thing about the human mind is that I'm sure most of your listeners know by the age of 0 to 6, we are forming our identity. So our traumas are happening in that time, and our defense mechanisms are being solidified in that time. So what tends to happen is that even though we continue to grow, our mind is on a loop believe in all of the things that have happened in our past. And what I found through my work is that we have a fundamental belief that is some version of I'm not good enough. And with firstborn daughters, I have a process, and a lot of the root beliefs that stem from I'm not good enough is I'm not worthy, I'm not considered, I'm not valued. There's this collective experience of feeling invisible, regardless of kind of being the center of everything. Is it hitting something for you?
I literally was just having a conversation with my husband this past weekend about the concept of wanting to be involved in our family or in greater world events, but also feeling invisible in so many scenarios that it's almost as if I expect myself to only work behind the curtain. That I am I've always called myself the assistant manager. So it's that concept that even though I am now the leader, the emotional leader of my family, I still have that, but I'm behind the curtain. I'm not in front of the curtain. I don't get that. I don't get to be on the stage. And so that is powerful to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the challenge with that is that you become so used to it, and all you've done since the age of 6 is manufacture evidence to be the assistant or be behind the curtain. You found evidence that no one cares about your feelings or emotions, so you've just been anchoring and anchoring and anchoring and anchoring this belief. So even though it's a painful experience to have, it's familiar, and it becomes kind of like an addiction. So when it comes to to answer the question, how do you kind of find your own way? You kind of first need to untangle all of the ways that you've created this really kind of thick web. And for a lot of firstborn daughters, vulnerability is seen as weakness. So there's this kind of armor of like, I've got everything together and I've got everything okay, even though on the undercurrent, it's like I'm a mess and I'm breaking down and I need support. No one would ever know. So the first thing that needs to happen is that you need to look at those uncomfortable feelings and look at those truths that may be keeping you hidden, that may be keeping you playing small, that may have you not set certain boundaries, that may have you overgive to the point of exhaustion and burnout. There's so many offshoots of how, because even though we're talking about the limitations, there are so many strengths that come from being a firstborn. You know, we become type A personality. So if someone wants something done and they give it to us, we're really good at delivering, right?
It's fascinating that you say that, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
No.
but my parents, like I said, had divorced when I was 6 years old, and they but equally have said, "But you like helping, but you like the responsibility, but you like," and the other piece of that for me has always been that I've had a lot of responsibility, but no authority.
Mm,
I was always looked at as a child, even though I was balancing the checkbook, cooking dinner, making the grocery list, cleaning the house, keeping up with my siblings. I was doing all of those really important things. I didn't have authority to actually make any decisions. So I live in that dichotomy as well. Not that this is
yeah.
about, but this is
No,
so.
it is about you. It's about, so it's interesting because you sharing that, I'm sure so many women that are listening are going to be like, oh my gosh, why does it feel like they're speaking to me? We are copy paste. It's so interesting and fascinating to see how similar we are in the things that we're scared of. And I think this is what I'm so glad that we're having this conversation on a podcast, because I felt so alone for a long time, thinking like no one gets it, no one understands what I'm going through. Because, like you said, I mastered putting on this front like everything was okay. So when I fell into depression and I had failed suicide attempt, everyone was like, "What's happening? Like this is not you. You're like fine, you know." So it becomes really difficult to, the reason why people say that you like doing that is when you have been conditioned that you get praise when you deliver or you do, you then have a fundamental belief that I have to earn love. So you kind of force your doing or your competence onto others in order for you to feel significant. So once you build this kind of habit, it's almost like a need for survival. If I don't do these things, then no one would love me. Or if I focus on myself, then I'm a selfish person. So then there are these kind of loops that keep you stuck in the patterns of having you show up a certain way. And in my case, I needed to break down in order for me to be like, okay, maybe I need to challenge these obligations that I have internally in order to step into something new. So it's
So amazing. I mean, it really is. When you said copy and paste, that's such a brilliant and succinct way of saying it, because um, everything you say, I am thinking myself, and so it is really powerful. Um, I'm in a complete agreement with you that just hearing there is someone else, and obviously you have done research to know that there are lots of other people that are in this position, if not every single one of us that are in this position feel the same way, and that scared of the same things, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Also, that your worth is tied to the productivity, and I always had this. Um, I didn't understand the transactional love concept, that in order to get that or to not feel unsafe, I had to do the things and help out. And on top of that, what that also did was that it created, especially as an entrepreneur, to your original point about this process, is that I can't delegate because my worth is tied to me doing it. And if I don't do it, then who's going to look at it? And on the flip side, at the same exact time, I have the fear that no one's going to listen to me anyway because I'm supposed to be behind the curtain. I'm not supposed to be in the front. And so there's that. It's a constant, like I said, a dichotomy, but it is that idea that you have the you want the thing, you have a desire and a dream to do something amazing and to really benefit the world, and yet this background programming is still there. So I really love your um, the way that you described being able to untangle it and get into the roots of our beautiful selves that are trees in this world, that we get down into the root system and have to figure out, okay, that one is no longer serving us, that one no longer allows nutrients to get to the tree. How how oh my gosh, there's so many directions I can go in here. I am I think that I want to go back to my lineage. And I'd love to know, for you, do you come from a line of firstborn daughters as well?
my mum, yes. I'm not sure about my grandma. So I can't answer it from my grandma
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
But my mum for sure, yes. And it's interesting because she said to me, she passed away in 2017. But when I was working with a coach to come out of depression, because a lot of the times I was fighting her to take accountability for the role that I played, and it was worthless because she was just defending herself, which humans do when you tell them that they're not doing something right. So um, I got to a point where I forgave her and I said, you know what, I forgive you for the role that I played because I like who I am and I wouldn't have become who I am if I didn't play the role that I played. And that gave her the space to kind of share with me. And she apologized and she said, you know, I saw you as my husband. And because you were helping me so much, I was so scared that if I mothered you, that you would stop and I needed your help. And that was like, oh my gosh. So I was thinking, my mom has 7 kids. She loves all of the 6 of them, but she doesn't love me. So I've grown up thinking I was unlovable all this time. And I was trying to win her love by being a good girl and being such a good helper. And that was making her not show me love even more, because she was like, oh my gosh, she's so useful. I need her to continue being useful. So, and she would always say, like, I deserve a break now. And I think that was her communicating that she had been doing the same for her siblings, because she married my dad and her siblings moved in with her and she put them through school. And so I think when she had me, it was kind of like, which is this pattern of it's my turn to rest and my daughter's going to give me that. So there's this kind of pushing onto that firstborn daughter, like, you give me the relief that I didn't have. Even if the mother is not a firstborn, I've seen that there seems to be this pattern of indirectly, even so, a lot of my clients are very conscious. They're doing the work to break their patterns, and they're subconsciously creating the same thing. And it's the worst thing for them to realize that they're recreating it with their own children. But
Right.
yeah, I had a coaching conversation last week with one of my clients, and she was like, I'm struggling to look at it. And I was like, well, what's the harm? Let's just look. And what she realized is that even though she's made life so much easier for her child, so she was an immigrant daughter where she had to like be the translator and everything for her parents, her kids don't have to do all of that. So for her kid isn't parentified. But then once we started digging in, she realized, actually, yeah, I look for validation from my firstborn. And I was like, did your mom give you validation with all the work you were doing? She was like, no, and it showed up in that way. So it's interesting, the subtle ways that it gets recreated.
It really is. And that concept that we look to the daughter to validate, I absolutely do that.
Mm.
And my children are triplets, so they are born at the same time, but the boys, because there were two of them, and they were identical twins, it made me, I had to focus somewhat on them at the beginning because I had to be able to tell them apart. I had to know which one was which.
Mhm.
But there have been plenty of times along the way that she has said, you like them more than you like me because that you pay attention to them, or they give you love differently. So there are ways that manifests itself. But I definitely look to her and joke with her and show her things that I think are fun, or show her things I think are pretty or that she'll think is pretty. And I look to her to validate that I'm doing it somewhat right.
Mhm.
And that's not her role, right? She's there to be a child and to be beautiful and to grow and to do all of the beautiful, normal things that kids do.
Mhm.
And so I do that. I absolutely do that. I validate in that way, but I did not receive validation either. So
Mm.
I completely can relate, as you have already beautifully illustrated, that we're all copy and pasted, that I can relate to your client as well, that I didn't have that. So then by asking for that from her, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just propagating that whole lovely cycle. No matter when we come to the realization, no matter when we come to that moment where we realize we are on the edge of the cliff looking down, going, look at all of that mess we made. How what can we do practically within ourselves before we come to you to sort of be ready? What are the things that we can do to get um, more stable in where we need to be to ask you questions?
I think you just demonstrated it. So it takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, I look to my child for validation. And I think that's where a lot of firstborn daughter struggles, because then it's like, oh, I'm not perfect, or they make it mean I'm not a good mom. We're all doing the best that I can. And I always tell mothers, your child has chosen you to perfectly damage them in the way they need to be damaged to be on their journey. There is no perfect mother, that there is no trauma-less like human. So it's impossible to be perfect. But if you're willing to look at, actually, I can see that I have been showing up in this way, which has resulted in this behavior in my daughter, or I can see that in my business, I'm holding on to things to feel significant and therefore limiting myself. That's number one step. If you're willing to do that and embrace and look at those not so perfected, fluffy versions of yourself, that's half of the work. Because like I said to you last week, this client's been working with me for 3-4 years, and she didn't want to look. And I'm like, the only way out is through. We got to look, because if you see what is up, then you can consciously do something about breaking the pattern. So in terms of people, I know someone's not ready if they're defensive and they're trying to protect their image, or they don't want to look at all of the ways that they have been showing up that hasn't been serving them, their loved ones, or the results that they want to achieve. So that's the first step, being willing to look in the mirror.
I love that. And I can see that doing the work to be able to set the groundwork, that you're setting the steps in place so that you can move forward. You also want to give yourself a soft place to land. You want to do it in a safe way for yourself. So you want, one of my favorite phrases to say is, the only way out is through.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that you just used that. But then you want to say the only way out is through, but we're not going to run straight off a cliff. Like, that's not what I hear you encouraging people to do. You're not saying just go fast. Doesn't matter. It does matter. And the steps that you're taking are intentional, and allow that process to happen with healing along the way, so that we aren't just running full speed off the cliff. And that's
Absolutely.
I can see your expertise and your skill set being very beneficial for those of us that have absolutely no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the healing too, because we don't take time to honor our emotions. It's kind of, let's push it to the side and push through. And one of the things, and the first step is looking in the mirror, but the second step is seeing the judgment that comes up on that, and then learning how to give yourself grace, because in the acknowledging our feelings and being able to soothe ourselves, that's where the healing happens, because we felt like our feelings didn't matter growing up. So as the adults, we have to reparent ourselves into wholeness. And part of that is thinking, how would I treat my little girl? It's like, now that I can see these things, am I going to shout her and berate her and make her feel bad? No, I'm going to hold space for her and honor the fact that she didn't feel loved and she didn't feel seen, and she didn't mean, her intention wasn't to put this pressure on her daughter. She wasn't doing it she wasn't doing it consciously. So I can forgive myself, knowing that I'm doing this work in order to step into a more expanded version of myself. Because I think I feel like everyone that knows a firstborn daughter is the luckiest person alive, because we are incredible, exceptional human beings. So it's not to look for what's wrong, it's to look for how can we step into an elevated version of ourselves, so that we can relieve the stress and the pressure that we carry, and be able to, because once our cup is full and we're given from overflow instead of scarcity, everyone is going to benefit from the wholer version of us. So yeah, it's part of the healing.
Especially in your really brilliant way of describing us. And I approve of the way you described us, because we're describing each other, that we really have an extra sensory level of strength, that it's our superhero, it's one of our superhero powers, and I believe we have more than one, but that it really is such a brilliant thing to watch us operate. And my best friend is a firstborn daughter.
Same as
It
mine. My
really is.
closest friends. I'm surrounded by them, and I'm the
Me
luckiest woman
too.
in the world. Yeah.
I love it. And
Yeah.
it is really cool to watch that ebb and flow, and just the differences in how we attack things, but she also comes from a long line of firstborn daughters. I just realized that. So there's just a beautiful evolution that I'm seeing in this, in that, not just in that are repairing what we experienced, but we're also repairing future generations. So go. What do you see in the community of firstborn daughters, and what we could do together, or even just to go out and on our own branches? What do you see as the future of this work?
Um, so I, okay, Ah, which my brain is going to different strands. All right, so I address firstly the hyper independence trait. So the thing about firstborn daughters is doing things alone. It's like it's a strength, but it's one of the weaknesses. Hence, you talked about the business limitations. So what I see with this is as they start to heal and they start to open themselves to receiving and learning how to give from a full cup. I've created a community that I'm trying to bring firstborn daughters who are entrepreneurs together, and my thing was there's something magical that happens when you bring givers into a space of other givers. They struggle to receive, but they don't really have a choice but to receive. So there's healing in that in itself. And like I said, it's not only going to break generational patterns of this continuing, because it's clearly a thing that scientists are looking into. It's also going to benefit the world on a grander scale because we just naturally are givers. So as we become more whole, our ability to be able to give in a more impactful, in a more kind of scalable way, it becomes tenfold. So I've partnered with one of my clients who runs an addiction recovery company. And when we started working together, she had the similar issues to you because we're copy and paste in terms of she was like, no one can do things as good as I am. When I hire people, they let me down. When we started looking at it, she was hiring people that needed her because then she felt validated to be needed. So therefore, the employees weren't helping her let go of things. They were giving her more work, and then she would get frustrated, and then she would hire them, and then she came to this conclusion. Cycle continues. So we had to move her into looking at how she was kind of being the bottleneck. And as a result of her getting out of her own way, she now has a team. She's 5x her business within a year, but she's 5x her impact, you know? So this is what's possible when we get out of our way and we start healing those things. We already have all of this special juice that's kind of it's potential that's unrealized, and once we kind of clear all of the icky stuff that no longer serves us, then that potential gets unleashed, and it happens quickly, you know. So yeah, that's what's possible.
That's so amazing. And I was thinking that that was what you might be about to say, because
Hmm.
the way it feels to me is incredibly expansive, that it will mean significant sprinting across multiple businesses and industries and countries and continents, and that is going to be an unstoppable force.
I hope so. I feel it, and I'm excited about it. This is definitely the beginning of that journey, and but it's not an easy journey. So it's like the results are incredible. The process of the things that we have to face and overcome, and the actions that we need to take, and ignore the guilt and the shame and all of the resistance that come up to pull us back into our comfort zone. That work is difficult, and I think that's what helps with having a community, because when you see in other women doing it, it allows you to kind of feel motivated. But it's definitely not easy, but it's so worth it.
It's like a collective bravery almost. Like we can say, but I see myself in Adaku. I can hold her hand across a really big ocean, and
Exactly.
do this in a really virtual way, or we can do this in
Right.
a really real physical way, and still be able to watch that occur, and that
Hmm.
confidence. I can already feel it, and that's what's cool about what you're describing, is that we we don't need much validation. We need validation,
Hmm.
yes, but we don't need much, because we already know that we are truly amazing human beings. And that just means that we just need a tiny little bit of a kick in the pants to get where we need to get.
Yes, and I
How
do.
young, I mean, I know you work with entrepreneurs as a general rule, but how young does this community look, and how old does this community look? Is it very balanced, or is it pretty heavily in one direction, or what does it look like?
No, so right now it's really new. The youngest is 30, the oldest I think is early 50s. So I've worked with people in their 60s. I don't think the reason I work with entrepreneurs and executives is because they have a certain capacity and appetite for pain. Like I said, I don't know if I sound nice, but that kick up the ass.
You do sound nice. You
Oh,
sound amazing, but I think that that does not mean that you give soft and squishy love all the time. So
no. So yeah, my coaching style is pretty like we're gonna get to the root, we're gonna rip off the plaster and we're gonna heal this thing. We're gonna expose it to some air so that it can dry out, so that we can build new skin and move forward. Like it that's the and it I tend to find that executives and entrepreneurs are in high pressured situations. So they have a time thing. So they're like, as quickly as I can find it, like just give it to me and oh yeah, that hurt, but let me go and take the action. So the reason I've niched to that demographic of firstborn daughters is because they tend to, through my 5 years of working with firstborns, they have more of a capacity to be able to deal with this kind of coaching and actually do something with it and get the results. And I tend to find that firstborns are a little bit judgmental, and this is because they're very self-critical. So we give what we are to ourselves. So because we're judgmental to ourselves, we're judgmental to others. So when I've had really mixed people on the call, and someone's taking a little bit longer and it needs a little bit, the others are starting to get a little bit itchy, like, oh my gosh, just get there already. Whereas if they're all entrepreneurs and they're all learning from each other's coaching, it just makes it feel like every conversation is valuable. So yes, I tend to just work as long as you're an entrepreneur. You can be a 16-year-old entrepreneur, it doesn't matter, just you're in that.
you have a different goal.
Exactly.
It sounds like, and that
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense. And in order to be an entrepreneur, you do have to have a different level of pain tolerance. I would agree with that 100%. I'm sure you
Yeah.
watched me laugh while you were describing it, because it is. Uh, I have a business coach, and he always describes it as being deliriously confident.
Yeah, there's that. I'm like, there's a slight screw loose if you, in a good way, in the best of ways, because we are disruptors and we're innovators and we're the ones who are creating jobs. But it's to put yourself in that level of uncertainty and to like weather the storm. And I saw something online where someone said something of like, you don't know what being broke is until you're an entrepreneur, because you can have like 20,000 one day and be like in the red the next day. And you've just got to create a capacity to deal with those ebbs and flows and unexpected circumstances without the security of a job and a salary. It takes it's not for everyone, right? So,
It's
yeah,
not. You're absolutely right. And I think that speaks very clearly to your niche, and that is a very specific way to describe that. And it works to your strengths as well,
yeah,
to be able to coach them in the way that you want to coach them. Well, I would love for you to give us I always call it a parting shot, but I really mean a building block, somewhere that we can start from here. And I've already asked you that question. Step one is awareness of what you're doing around you. What can we do with that information? Um,
okay. So
what would
there is,
you recommend that we do with that information, I should say? Yeah.
when you know what you're doing, it's easy to know to do the opposite to get a new result. So the reason awareness, and I would always say, okay, oh, all right, let me build this up. Your emotions are everything. And I always say that emotions are a gift from God to let you know when you're in and out of alignment of your higher self. every low vibrational emotion is your subconscious mind anticipating danger. It doesn't have to be real. It's just projecting this I'm not good enough situation. And it manifests in four ways. You're looking for evidence that I'm not enough is true, or I'm invisible, or no one cares about me, or I'm not worthy, whatever the case is. When you're not looking for evidence, you're manufacturing it. So you will set things up in your environment to give you the outcome. So it's like, I'm not going to ask for what I need, and then when I don't get what I need, I'm going to be pissed at everyone and be right that no one shows up for me. Well, they didn't know that you need help, so you kind of manufactured that situation. We do that in a number of ways. Then the third way that it manifests is that we push love away. So once we get evidence that we're good enough or we're successful or whatever, we sabotage it, because our brain is like, if I really take this on, my whole life has been a lie and I don't know how to show up otherwise. So I have to like push away things that show that I'm enough. And the last way it shows up is that we take on these personas. For firstborn daughters, it's usually I'm the helpful one, I'm the caregiver, I'm the intelligent one. So we take on these personas that if I'm this way, then I'll be loved. These are all of the ways that we anchor I'm not enough. And every time we feel a low vibrational emotion, whether it's anger through to boredom, we're anticipating that there's something wrong. Paying attention to our emotions will give us access to knowing what's going on subconsciously. And your brain is a computer. If you ask yourself, like, what is this triggering? What am I making it mean about this moment? You'll figure out what the limiting belief is. Once you know the limiting belief, the opposite is actually the first thing to do is to go to, okay, well, if this is my limiting belief, then what's really happening? And when you can go to what's really happening, you can distinguish between the facts of what has transpired in your reality versus the story that you're projecting onto it. Like someone doesn't answer a text and you're like, oh my gosh, they probably are ignoring me. Reality is they just haven't answered the text. They could be busy. It could be a whole bunch of things. So once you can see that you're creating the low vibrational emotion, it creates a little bit of ease to let go of the emotion, the negative emotion, which is important because the last step is taking aligned action. But if you try and act in a different way, but you're still believing that low vibrational place, you're going to continue to create the same outcomes because the energy in which you act from is what determines the results that you get. So you need to be able to see, I'm experiencing a low vibrational emotion. I'm creating a story. Okay, I can see that my story has nothing to do with the reality. Now I'm calmer. What can I see as the opposite of the story that I'm creating in terms of the action that I need to take? And when you take that, your brain is not going to want you to take that action because that's danger zone. It's like you're doing the opposite of what we've always done. But once you take it from an aligned place, your brain says, oh, we didn't die. So then it starts letting go of the grips of your patterns. And that's how you can consistently, if you just keep going through your triggers in that way and taking aligned action, eventually you let go of those old ways of being and they don't feature. But then new ways rise up at this new level of expansion. So that's how you fundamentally break your patterns and step into a new way of being.
You find new roots, right? But as we get rid of the bad ones, good ones grow. And that's where I see the beauty in the work is that we are then creating better patterns exactly the way that you said it. We're doing it from the foundation up instead of from the top down, you know.
Exactly.
I see it as such a growth opportunity that it just looks so expansive. And I know I've said that already in this episode, but it just looks like if I shed that, I can grow to here.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I shed that one, I can grow to here. And you can't see my hands, but they're big, I promise. That we can expand individually, which then expands globally. It is a beautiful trickle effect.
It is. Your external reality will always reflect where you are, which is why I work with entrepreneurs. We look at the business sometimes as a vehicle, but when they fundamentally shift, everything shifts. It's like, oh my gosh, where's all this business coming from? Oh my gosh, you're operating at a different frequency, and you just start to, your brain now starts to see opportunities differently. You show up differently, so you attract different things because people are drawn to this new energy, so it is this kind of, I'm like, yeah, you can go and learn business skills, or you can do another kind of professional leadership course, and I'm sure it will help, but it will move the needle a little bit. If you change how you feel about yourself and show up differently in the world, it has this ripple effect. So it's fascinating. It becomes this game of what is the new edge that I can lean into, and what is going to show up as a result of it, and it's without fail every single time. So if there's something you don't want, and that's also a tool for growth, if there's something that you want that you can't get, look at what's showing up in your reality in relation to that thing, and it'll give you an idea of what you're doing to create it. Your external reality is always highlighting what's going on within.
I love it. How can we find you? How can we work with you? And how can we continue this conversation?
Okay, so my website is called Healed Hero because I think firstborn daughters are heroes, and we're working on healing the version of us that no longer serves us. So www.healedhero.com. Everything is on there. I'm going to move to weekly. I was doing bi-weekly, a free webinar, which is can be found on healedhero.com/heal -through-vulnerability. I probably need to make that shorter. But you can register there, and there's a free 90-minute webinar where I'll do live coaching. I'll run through some exercises. So that's another way to engage.
I love it. I am so thankful for this conversation, not just because it spoke to me personally, but there are so many of us that I know it will reach where it is exactly the people it's supposed to reach in the audience as well. And I'm incredibly thankful for you wanting to be a part of it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. And I can't wait to continue to know you and to continue to build on this information. It's going to be great.
Likewise, I've had such a good time. It's so easy speaking to a firstborn daughter because I'm not explaining something from scratch, right? You just get it. So this has been a fun conversation. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for opening me up to your community. And likewise, I look forward to staying in touch.